I want to ask you guys this question. Who do you think had the best year in the world of MMA? Like, genuine question, because this has been a crazy year. This question came to me, and I was filming a video just about crazy moments that happened. And I was talking about Sean Strickland winning the title. On how that's not just one of the craziest events to occur this year, but it's also that this might be the best year for Sean Strickland compared to any other MMA fighter. But before I go on and name other UFC fighters that had a phenomenal year, please feel free to like, comment a fighter that you think I missed, and please consider a subscribe. And if you're already subscribed, please hit the bell icon. It really helps my channel out. We're trying to get to 2,000 before the end of the year. We'll barely make it if we do, but I'm thankful that we've made it this far. With that out of the way, I'm going to get back to my rant. So, other fighters that have had a great year. Pantoja. Pantoja not only wins the belt against Brendan Moreno, a fan favorite, he puts on a fight of the year performance against the guy. Beats Brandon Royval. Now, if you thought the fight was boring or you thought the fight was technical, that's completely up to you. But he defends the belt. Like, that's pretty rare for flyweights, I'm not even gonna lie. And he furthers his legacy and may become a fan favorite in the future. Leon Edwards. Despite your opinions on his Colby Covington matchup, he was able to win the trilogy against Kamaru Usman this year and defend the belt against Colby Covington, another fan favorite, if you want to say that, and got paid. Also had a great year. John Jones was able to make his comeback fight and beat Cyril Gane. Now, I would say he had a meh year purely because he didn't get to have his retirement fight, and I'm sure that kind of fucked it up for him. Tom Aspinall wins the interim belt, but again, just found out he can't fight John Jones or Stipe Miocic and is probably going to be inactive until next year, September. Not a great year. Israel probably had the worst year, if we're going to be honest. Outside of beating Alex Pereira, he got his legacy tarnished by Sean Strickland. And speaking of Sean Strickland, he had the best year in all of MMA. Like, let me explain to you how far we've come. In December of 2022, he loses a razor-thin decision to Jared Cannonier. No. Alex Pereira and Jared Cannonier used the name of Sean Strickland to catapult themselves into a next title shot. The UFC treated Sean Strickland as the official journeyman for the middleweight division, and they were going to do it again later on that year. He loses to Jared Cannonier. People say that's a robbery. And instead of taking time off and, recovering from the damages, bro fights in 1 month. One of the very few times in the entirety of MMA history, the only time in this modern era of MMA, he is the headliner of the last fight night of the year and is the headliner of the first fight night of the year. Crazy. Goes from fighting Jared Cannonier to Imavov. And Imavov looked good against Joaquin Buckley. That was the win that he had to fight Sean Strickland. He looked good. And Strickland wins a dominant 5-round decision. Granted, it was a decision. He was the decision magician. A lot of people forget that. But he wins against Imavov and gets back into the win column. Great. And then July 1st, International Fight Week, they, out of nowhere, decide to do Sean Strickland against Abbas Magomedov. Now, a lot of people were confused why this matchup was made, but let me give you some clarification over why this matchup was made and the real reason it was. Abbas Magomedov is his only notable fight in his entire career, not even a win, notable fight, is he lost to Khamzat Chimaev. Okay, guys, some of you guys might have already noticed the mistake I made. You see, I said Abbas Magomedov lost to Khamzat Chimaev in his early pro career. That is wrong. I mistaked him for Ikram Aliskerov. Doesn't change the fact that they were going to make Abbas Magomedov fight Khamzat Chimaev on the Abu Dhabi card. I mean, that's a pretty easy 2 lines to connect because Abu Dhabi was in a few months and Khamzat was already on the card to begin with. So, point still stands, but I got the guy wrong. Thank you for anybody who corrected me on that, and get back to the video. The UFC this is what they wanted more than anything. They wanted Abbas Magomedov to beat Sean Strickland so they can justify doing Abbas Magomedov versus Khamzat Chimaev. And if Khamzat Chimaev beats Abbas, then he gets to fight for the title next. That was the original plan before Paulo Costa and eventually Kamaru Usman. But Strickland had to come in and ruin that again. He gets one of the very few finishes in his entire career against Abbas Magomedov. You remember Jared Cannonier? He got a title shot off of Sean Strickland and has a snoozer of a performance against Israel Adesanya. I don't think that's Jared's fault. It takes two to tango. Israel's style doesn't lend itself to exciting performances. He's a counter striker and a point fighter. That's nothing against the dude, but you gotta bring the heat to Israel if you want a good show. And he loses that. Now, another thing that was happening during this time is Dricus du Plessis gets a TKO over Robert Whittaker. We all know this story. I've told this multiple times. Dricus du Plessis was supposed to fight Israel Adesanya in Australia. They thought Robert Whittaker was going to beat Dricus. That's why the fight was in Australia to begin with. And Israel knew he was going to fight on that card in Australia. Since May of that year, there are articles that are written that said that Israel knew this. He knew he was fighting for most of that year. Dricus didn't. Dricus is offered the fight, turns it down, and they try to give it to Jared Cannonier. I'm not kidding. Go back. Jared Cannonier was the first guy they called up to fight Israel Adesanya on short notice. But if you look at that card, look at the Strickland versus Israel Adesanya card. Maybe I'll put it right there just to remind you that this card was shit. Imagine, and instead of Strickland fighting Adesanya, they did Jared Cannonier versus Adesanya 2. This card would have sold almost nothing. So, what ends up happening is they try to go with Jared Cannonier and Israel Adesanya. Either Adesanya, Hunter, or Dana sees the potential pay-per-view numbers and is like, I'm not liking this. Maybe we do Sean Strickland. And they lowball him. If you remember, I believe what they tried to offer him was somewhere in the realm of like $150,000. They tried to lowball him for getting his, probably at this point, his only title shot in his entire career. Let's be real. If he lost to Israel Adesanya, he would never get the fight for another title. That's just a fact. So, they say no again. They go back to Jared Cannonier. Adesanya's now getting this feeling that, oh shit, I'm probably not going to sell a lot here, and this is probably the last fight of the year unless something else happens. Fuck it, give it to Strickland. Strickland's been talking a lot of shit to me in the JRE. Let's give him the money that he wants. I'm not sure the number that they planned on giving him, but it was enough money for Strickland to fight on 4 weeks' notice. It might have been 3 weeks' notice at this point. 3 weeks' notice to fight the second best middleweight of all time and the number one middleweight in the world, Israel Adesanya. Has one of the most horrific weight cuts in middleweight history. This is per Daniel Cormier. I think that guy knows what he's talking about. Says he had one of the worst weight cuts of his entire career. Coming off of jet lag, because we're from America, goes to Australia, and is celebrated in the press conferences, somehow becomes a fan favorite in Australia. The entirety of that crowd goes against Israel. Israel Adesanya didn't even want to engage with him at the press conference. Snoozer of a press conference. But Strickland still makes it entertaining. The fight happens and Strickland knocks down Israel Adesanya in the first round, walks him down for 5 rounds, and wins a dominant decision win. To put it into perspective how surprised I was, when the fight was over, after the bell rung for the final time, I audibly said, oh shit, I guess they're gonna rob him. I legitimately thought that there is no way that the UFC would wrap the belt around Sean Strickland's waist, that they would just rig a fight for him. That's how crazy I thought it was that this happened. But they give it to him. He is the middleweight champion of the world and forces Israel Adesanya to what it seems as an early retirement. I know he says he's coming back, and he probably is coming back. Bro went into just asylum and didn't want to talk to anybody. Yeah, Sean Strickland had the best year in MMA history. And it really isn't even close. Bro went from unknown journeyman coming off a loss to the #1 middleweight in the world, doing interviews with Joe Rogan, Theo Von. Yeah, obviously, bro had the best year. If you think somebody else had a better year than Sean Strickland, put them in the comment section below. Or if you just want to start a conversation, I'll reply to you there. If you enjoy this content, please consider a like, a share it with your friends. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and hit the bell icon. Really helps me in the algorithm. And with that out of the way, adios, guys.